probably every single product that you can imagine, I've seen doing big numbers, whether that's shapewear, underwear, jewelry, wallets, caps, shoes, dog beds, right? Resistance bands. I've seen all of those products do 500,000, 1 million, 2 million a month. So it's in the beginning, I was also surprised sometimes, like what type of products would do certain numbers. But now I've seen it all, and I don't even get surprised anymore when somebody's in a call and they tell me, "Hey, I have this crazy new product and it's doing 2 million a month." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I guess it works."
Welcome back to another episode of the Beyond the Wealth podcast. I'm your host, Sanchez, and today I'm here with Carl Weische, the founder of the Accelerated Agency, doing CRO for 8-figure brands like Andrew Huberman, Huel, and a ton of other amazing companies. Carl, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm really excited to have this conversation because growth is one of the obviously most important part of any business, but it feels like the landscape is getting ever more challenging. There's tons more competition. There's new brands being spun up overnight. So I'm excited to hear kind of your feedback, what you're seeing behind the scenes, and even how you work with some of these extremely successful brands.
Yeah, sweet. Let's get into it.
So let's just start with a little bit of an introduction. Who is Carl? Why did you get into this space? And we'll take it from there.
Sure. So my name is Carl Weische. I'm 26 years old. I got into this space at almost exactly 10 years ago, I would say, when I started buying and reselling limited sneakers and limited clothing. So back then there was a lot like Yeezy Boost, Supreme, Jordans, Nikes, all of those like exclusive collections, right? So back then a lot of people were getting into the fashion game and a lot of people wanted to get their hands on these exclusive products. So me and my friends also would spend like all of our money buying them to wear them. And then at one point, I just started thinking, well, why don't I just like start buying more of them, right? Because I kind of knew how to get it. I had no way around it and everything. So I started buying them in bigger quantities and then sold them for a higher price on eBay, for example, afterwards. And that's how I made my money when I was 16 and 17. Then I got into e-commerce, right? So I started doing my own online store with own electronic products. So wireless phone chargers, phone accessories, phone cases, and all of that. And I started selling that in 2019 on Amazon and on Shopify. And from that, I initially hired a freelancer who was doing conversion rate optimization, which is the business that I'm in right now, right? With running the agency. And this freelancer called Lars is now my business partner, right? So back then when I was running the Ecom brand myself, I hired him. We worked together. I really, really liked what he did. And I also saw a lot of potential in it. It was really like a blue ocean back then. And that's why I decided to move into the freelancing space. And now over the past 4 or 5 years, we've basically built Accelerated to be one of the biggest agencies that specialized in conversion optimization. And have the pleasure to work with some amazing brands, some amazing people, and that's my work now, and that's where I'm.
That's amazing. And maybe we crossed paths in an earlier life. I'm 26 as well. I was deep in the sneaker and online resale world. I owned one of the biggest bot rental discords on the market. And that was my first stab into entrepreneurship. So who knows, maybe we've crossed paths in an earlier life. But I love that journey. And it's one of those that I've come across a bunch. Like I've met tons of people like me, realized that there was money in sneakers, pivoted from there and said, okay, well, this is kind of slowing down. E-commerce is the next natural progression. And then you end up kind of finding your niche along the way. How important was it for you to get those experiences early on? Like how impactful were those early days to where you're at right now?
I would say super important because from the way that you would have to get these sneakers, like you would have to figure out a way to get your hands on them, right? Like that's why you work with bots, or that's why you work with some backdoor accesses to those stores to get your hands on them, right? That was like the first big challenge to solve, which I think was pretty interesting and really taught me a lot. The second thing would be how to market them afterwards, like how to take pictures, how to put them online, how to do the copywriting, how to get people interested in them, finding the right price sensitivity where you would sell them quickly enough, but you would also make enough money. So I think those initial days back then with sneaker reselling taught me a lot about how to think about online marketing, how to think about pricing, how to make money, how to invest my time. And then obviously the same with e-commerce, right? Like I was in the shoes of a brand owner myself. I got really deep into everything, like the front end, the back end. I built the Shopify store. I did the product images. I wrote the copy. I set up email newsletters. I talked to the suppliers. I figured out how to brand the product, how to package it. So I think it's really really interesting to be in the shoes of like a business owner, but in different businesses, right? Because then you kind of get the ins and outs of all of the different businesses, and you really get a look behind the scenes, and you also understand how to think like a business owner, how to think like a brand owner, how to think like a freelancer, right? Which is, I think, pretty interesting. And all of these experiences and lessons that I got taught in those earlier business models are super beneficial for the business that I'm running now.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I always talk to younger entrepreneurs when I come across them, and just let them know, like, one, you're so ridiculously early. Like, don't ever get stressed out thinking that you're behind the eight ball because you heard some 16-year-olds clipping videos making $1 million a month on TikTok. But also, like, I always tell them, hey, you need to make sure that you experience a lot of these different things and try a lot of these different businesses, because you'll start to learn what it takes to actually build a successful business when you have the capital, when you have the ability. So I love that those experiences really made a difference in your career. You said that you partnered up with a freelancer that was helping you with your business. Where did this media buying and growth, like, why was that interesting to you? Why did that draw you in to go and pursue that and leave the e-commerce business and go all in?
Yeah. I mean, for me personally, I was always really obsessed with psychology. So you're probably familiar with books like How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? Those kind of books. And I personally always I just read so many books around psychology because I wanted to understand how the brain works, how I can influence myself, how I can have a positive impact that I have on the relationships with other people, how can I potentially help them or influence them. So that was always super interesting for me on the private side. And on the business side, it was always this thing like online marketing, selling products online, right? And for me, when I was talking to Lars and hired him as a freelancer for conversion rate optimization, I quickly realized that it was basically the overlay of those two, right? Of online marketing and psychology in this field of conversion optimization, which is all based on consumer psychology and understanding how people behave and how you can influence that behavior, right? So for me, when he told me, change this copy, change this product description on your website, change the copy in the email, and you're going to make more money because you're going to influence more people to buy, I was like mind blown, right? I was like, okay, you can just change around some things on the website and get more people to buy because you can influence their behavior. It's crazy, right? Crazy to think. But also all of the biggest companies worldwide, like Amazon, like every single pixel, every single word, like where the images are, where the button is on Amazon.com is really well thought through and tested to be able to influence people to buy quickly, have a high like ability to buy, and also cross sell them right on other products to spend a lot of money and have a high average order value. So I just got really drawn to that naturally because it was playing to both of my passions of marketing and psychology, and that's why I got into it, and I saw a lot of potential into it because back then, and I would say even still now to this date, there aren't a lot of people in this space. So I would really say it's a blue ocean, and that's why we just push the throttle and really invest into that.
You mentioned that you started learning a lot of these little tricks and tips to get things to convert more, to get them to be more, to have more sales come through. There's, I'm sure there's a bunch of e-commerce startups or entrepreneurs that want to get into e-commerce listening or watching right now. Without giving away all the sauce, what are some common mistakes you see people make early, that can be fixed or can be changed, to help them be more successful?
Yeah, great question. I think the biggest mistake that people make when they get into e-commerce is that they go on like a big website, right? Like Nike.com, Dior, Apple, whatever, right? And then they think, okay, well, this is $1 billion, maybe even $1 trillion company. Let me just copy and paste everything that they're doing because it seems to work for them. But the problem is that in every niche and in every industry and every product, the consumer is different and the target audience is different. So they have certain pain points, they have certain motivations, but they are super different in the way that they consume and in the way that they buy the product. So what I always like to tell people, especially in the beginning, is to get on the phone with customers, get on the phone with prospects and talk to them, right? Let's say, for example, you sell a dog bed, right? Random product, dog bed. Maybe seen this because it has been a crazy winning product before. Then what I would really recommend you to do is talk to dog owners, talk to 30, 50, 100 dog owners and ask them, right? Like, what is important for you when you are in the market for a dog bed? What do you watch out for? What is the current pain that you have with the current product that you're using? How would you use this product in your day-to-day life? Why would you go for a certain company? Like, what qualities are you looking for in a dog bed? What is important for you when you think about your dog, right? And I would just ask them all of these questions to get a good understanding of why and how they buy this specific product that I'm selling. And then they will give you really, really great valuable answers that you can then use for your ads, for your copywriting, for your product images, and really make it resonate with them, right? And that's the thing that people get wrong the most in the beginning, is that they just copy and paste something from a big company, they apply it to their product, they put it online, but then it doesn't resonate with people, right? It's just a product. It's not emotional. They don't hit the pain points of people. They don't show how to use the product correctly, and they don't resonate with the target audience at all, and hence they don't end up buying the product.
Yeah, I think it's so important to actually get customer data. People are shocked when their product doesn't sell through, and then you talk to them and they're like, well, how many customers have you talked to? Oh, I've never talked to one. I just built this because I thought they'd want it. And it's funny that you mentioned Dior. Dior has definitely figured out how to do something right, because they served me an email today about their new collection. And the cheapest thing on the website was a $400 keychain. And every pair of sneakers was $1,700. T-shirts were $1,000, and I can't. People buy it and go crazy for it. So they're clearly doing something right. But for you and building this agency, what were some of the? Do you have like a good story or like a turning point when you went from like, all right, like this is a blue ocean, this is something that we could go all in on, to like, holy shit, like this is actually something that we're gonna crush on and we're gonna be able to sign and work with some of the biggest brands? Do you have like a moment that comes back to mind for that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, that was probably early 2022. You may be familiar with Nick Shackelford. So he's a huge guy also in the agency and ecom space. And back then he used to do those mastermind events called Geek Out, which was one of the best events that I've been to this date. And there was the Geek Out Dubai in February 2022. And he was kind enough to invite us as one of the speakers to that event. And on that event, I did the speaking slot, right? We were around, I think, like 10 or 12 people at that stage. So I did the speaking slot. It got me connected with a bunch of really, really great people in the audience. And that also got me recognized by huge ecom entrepreneurs like Davey Fogarty, who then reached out to me via DM on Twitter, for example, and texted me. So that's how we ended up working together with them and the Udi, which was our first, I would say, big home run client, because everybody in the e-commerce field knows the Udi and Davey Fogarty, right? So that was our first home run. So over 2022, we just used the Geek Out Dubai and the case study with Davey Fogarty, and that got us from a team of 10 to a team of 35 at the end of 2022. So we just saw an explosive growth over the year, hired a bunch of team people, built the team, onboarded a bunch of clients, and then went into 2023 with like a big team, like 3 or 4 times the size. So that really opened our eyes to the explosive growth that you can have in this field. And then we just doubled down on it. And then 2023, we were fortunate enough to start the work with Alex Hormozi. So we built the online store for Alex Hormozi for his book launch. And then that obviously had another domino effect to a bunch of other big brands that we then onboarded 2024. Like AG1 or Huel, or other big German brands. And yeah, we since then we just double down and continue to push the throttle.
That's awesome. And like those are such recognizable brands. You mentioned that the team almost tripled in size. I'm assuming it's even bigger now than it was in 2022. Um, as a founder, managing and hiring people is one of the toughest parts. What were some of the things you learned, some of the mistakes you might have made early on, and what advice would you give to founders that are in your 2022 shoes that are starting to scale up, starting to see success, and are having to make that move to bring more people on the team?
Yeah, good question. I would say definitely have a really solid hiring process. So the biggest mistake that we did in the beginning when we started hiring is that we would talk to people and we would just get convinced too quick. So we hired the people that could sell themselves pretty well, but then on the actual job, they did a really bad job, right? So we just did like 5 or 10 bad hires just because they did an amazing job at the interview. And then we were like, yeah, they're amazing. They can talk so well. They know exactly what we need. We will hire them. We will give them a bunch of money. It will be amazing. But it wasn't. So the big thing is probably how to figure out like who to hire for a specific role. And secondly, it's a thing that I would have never thought to be true, but actually think about your company culture, right? Think about the culture and values that you have as the founder and that you want your team to display. And I really never cared about that. I was like, yeah, culture, whatever, right? Like they're going to fit or we're going to make them fit. But we saw with every person that didn't fit the company culture 100% and didn't have the same values and the same mindset and point of view that we had, they would go over a certain period of time, whether it be 6 months or a year or 2 years, but they would go because they wouldn't be comfortable in the long run. And we also started bumping heads with them, right? So those two aspects are super, super important. And then the third one would be it's difficult to make this in the beginning to hire seniors because they cost a lot, right? So in the beginning, you're kind of reliant on juniors or people that you have to train. But as quickly as possible, I would make the switch to hiring seniors and people that have been doing the exact job that you wanted to do for 3 to 5 years minimum. That's something that I would say we probably switched too late. So we relied on juniors or we relied on training them ourselves too long. Obviously, also because of cash flow issues. But yeah, that's also a switch that I would try to make as quickly as possible because one senior, one really good player is better than 3 or 4 bad players. And then the money is well better spent with that senior that costs a bit more.
Yeah, it's such a tough spot to be an early stage company because, like you said, senior people want a lot of money or they're interested in equity if they're coming in and are doing a little run on hopping from startup to startup or trying to find one that they want to spend some time at. Juniors are the ones that are like really motivated, want to come in, but have no clue what they're really getting into.
Yeah.
So I've heard that story over and over again. So I think it really is one of those times where you just gotta, I mean, entrepreneurship comes with a ton of luck. Sometimes you just got to get lucky on some of the people you hire. Do you have anybody that was a junior that you hired that ended up becoming higher in the company now that's been with you
Yeah.
since day one? That's like one of those like fantastic hires.
Yeah, funnily enough, like it's a friend of mine from university, and he was actually our first hire, right? And so in the beginning, he started out as a developer, then he moved to like a data analyst, then he moved to a team lead, and now he has been in the C level, which is like the highest position, managing position in our company that you can have. And he has been in the C level for like 1.5 years now. So he kind of started as a day one hire and moved up the ranks, like from the bottom to the top. And he was definitely one. I mean, we just trained him from day one, right? So obviously he was in university with me. He didn't have any like job experience, so we just trained him from day one. But he turned out, yeah, to grow into the position with the skill set that he needed to have, and he just did an amazing job at that naturally, which is pretty sick, and I'm super happy to still have him, right? Like we have like 5 or 6 people that have been with us since like the early days that are still with us, which makes me really proud, and which also like you can feel that they have the company DNA, right? Like they've been trained and indoctrinated since day one from us as founders, and it's so valuable to have them on board because they really live it, right? They have the DNA.
Yeah, and I think there's plenty of people listening and watching now that are probably in the shoes of your buddy that are trying to find a company that they can start at right out of college, somewhere they can sit and learn, somewhere they can develop. And I tell a lot of entrepreneurs early now that if you don't really know what you want or you're trying to figure out what path you want to go, like go try and join a startup, go try and work inside of some of these smaller agencies and companies so you can be close to founders that are scaling, because I think that's a really important place. And obviously it worked out for the friend of yours who's now at the C level and very successful. So that's amazing. I'm curious, like working with all of these big brands, like just looking at your website, like you've worked with a ton of major companies at this point. There's got to be a story that comes to mind or a moment that comes to mind that was very challenging. I know most podcasts are very positive and everything's sunshine and roses, but I like to highlight the sometimes the challenging moments in creating a successful company, because it's a part of the journey. There's not really any company that goes from 0 to 100 and has no roadblocks, hiccups. So is there a moment that comes to mind for you as a founder where it was like, wow, I think we're going to fail, or wow, I think things are kind of getting out of control here? That was like a big moment to overcome for you?
Definitely, and I'm happy that you talk about it because, as you said, not a lot of people on podcast asked this question. I would say, I mean, we have had hundreds of moments like this, right? Like, to be fair, I was never convinced that we are going to fail ever, right? Like, I just have this weird sense of we are always going to make it. But definitely, we were with the backs at the wall at times, multiple times. I would say the two big challenges as a founder of any business that you're scaling is, on the one hand side, more of like a personal thing where like the amount of stress that you have to be able to tolerate and manage and still perform is insane. So I would say that there have been multiple, probably like 3 or 4 crazy stressful periods where I was sometimes at evenings or on the weekends sitting there and just like praying or thinking how can I find the resources to manage this period, right? Like how am I going to be able to manage the stress? The solution was mostly in a mixture of qualitative downtime, having a solid routine with gym and a healthy diet, cutting down on things, right? Like just having the business, maybe your partner, your family, and that's it. Like there's no time for hobbies or yada, yada, yada. Like you just have to focus on 2 to 3 things at max, which is going to be your health, the business, and then maybe family or like 1 or 2 good friends. And then you have to cut out everything else because otherwise you're not going to be able to manage the stress and work the time that's needed. So I would say that's like the one big thing and the struggle that's coming like back again, like every couple of months as a business owner, depending on like the scaling period you're in the business. The second big thing that we've encountered a couple of times is obviously when you scale quick, you also build a certain fixed cost block of overheads, of softwares, of an office, of ad spend. And that, especially in the beginning, is just growing so quickly because you have to hire people, you have to have software, you have to have certain things in place to deliver the service, and then the costs are going to 100k, 200, 250, whatever, and then the revenue drops. Or you plan that you get a bunch of new clients, but then you don't get a bunch of new clients, but then you have the costs, and then you obviously don't have millions of dollars on your bank account, so you only have a couple of months of one rate, and then you again have to figure out how to get a bunch of new clients, how to get the cash flow in. And also those probably are the two most dangerous situations that you as a founder are going to find yourself in. Maybe there's a third one that I didn't think of now, but those from my perspective are the two things that will probably haunt you like once or twice a year minimum, um, at every stage of the business. And you just have to be prepared for it because they are tough and otherwise they will wipe you out. And I think most of the founders are not failing the company because they are dumb or something. I think most of the founders fail because they either get burned out or they scale too quickly and then just run into cash flow issues and then it's done, right? I think those are like really, really two dangerous situations to be in if you don't manage them correctly.
Yeah, and obviously being a founder, you're most people are like, "Oh, I want to leave my 9 to 5 to go be an entrepreneur or a founder," thinking that they're taking the easier route, but that's just the farthest thing from true. Stress through the roof. You mentioned prioritizing your health is one of the three top things. Honestly, the top two things, it's business and health. Um, why do you think that's so important, and how much has becoming healthy and focusing on your diet and what you put in and out of your body been to your success?
Great question. So health has always been a big one for me, but I think now over the past couple of months, I just put it as number one. Like I hired a personal trainer to like optimize everything from the sleep to the nutrition to the diet, supplements, and training. Before that, I was like, I mean, I've been really fascinated about the topic. I've been doing tons of research myself just to figure it out, but now I wanted to get it to the top notch. I think it's pretty logical to prioritize health because um, without health, everything is nothing. If that makes sense, right? Like if your health is your problem, then you only have one problem, which is the health. You have to get healthy again, right? And if the like health is the foundation for everything, like all other problems are secondary if your health is a problem, right? So I think it's just logical to make sure that you are healthy, that to make sure that you have the most possible amount of energy and focus to be able to work efficiently and yeah, just have a solid output. Because otherwise, if you're unhealthy, if you're tired, if you fatigue quickly, if you don't sleep well, if you don't have a bunch of energy or focus, you're just not going to be able to have a solid output. So especially as an entrepreneur, I think it's just, I mean, for everybody, but especially as an entrepreneur, I think it's just logical to put your health first.
Yeah, I think that's one of my priorities in 2025. I've never been like a really unhealthy person, but um, not where I was when I was an athlete and all in on training and things like that. And one of my goals is to kind of get back there because as I've started to scale my businesses and take on more responsibilities, it's hard. Like if you're not really dialed in to actually be able to put in the output that's needed to be successful. And I'm learning that the hard way. So I love that that's like a core part of what you're doing. And I think it should be a core part of every founder's journey because maybe at first you could get away with it, but when things get tough and when things are scaling and things are moving quickly, you will realize that if you're not taking care of yourself, you do not have you don't even have the ability to perform in the way that your company needs you to perform because it takes being really dialed in to get that extra energy, to get that extra hour, 2 hours of work that needs to happen and be able to wake up in the morning and get back after it again. So I love it. Uh, I'm looking at the brand list here. Obviously, we talked about it earlier. AG1, Alex Hormozi, Huel. Um, I don't want you to pick favorites, but is there a campaign that comes to mind? Uh, uh, a project you did with one of those brands that is your favorite, was the biggest winner, or something like that?
Um, I don't have a favorite. I would say that with all of these huge brands and companies, every single project has been truly amazing because obviously, like, you're just going to give it your all when you work with these brands. So every project has been different, obviously, right? So every project was interesting and fascinating just by its own appeal, right? So, for example, if I think about Alex Hormozi, we built the whole store for the book launch event from scratch, which was pretty interesting. For Huel, we worked on a huge website relaunch that went live in November last year, which was also pretty cool. With AG1, we're working on new paid acquisition funnels at the moment. So yeah, that's those all have been pretty interesting and fascinating, but like everything was a bit different, if that makes sense, right? From like the way that we approach a project or what exactly we've been doing. But interestingly enough, what I found with all of these big companies, I'm a big believer that they got so successful because they're also really great people. And we have, like, in all of these projects with all of these people from those companies you just mentioned, they've been the most humble, most grateful, best communicating clients that we've had, right? Which is really interesting because sometimes you work with a, in comparison, small brand and they are super arrogant or they have a big ego or they don't communicate well, and then you're thinking like, why, right? But then you kind of understand that obviously, like, these big companies only got to the stage and the level that they're at because they're so open to every idea. They communicate really well. They manage you also really well as an agency, and they also make sure from their side that the project is becoming a great success. Um, so yeah, all of those projects just have been really interesting and amazing to work with, I would say.
Yeah, that's interesting because you typically hear it the other way around. Like sometimes it's hard to work with some of these major brands because their communication's kind of poor. They're so big that it's hard to get them on the same page. But vice versa, and I've experienced this too. It's like the smallest brand typically brings the biggest headache. And I feel like it's not their fault. Sometimes if you're arrogant and you're just not a good person, then that's on you. But most of them have like the tightest budget ever. They're giving you their last $1,000 and they're like, please turn my business around, which is tough from your side as the founder as well of an agency, because I mean, we know that growth is not easy. It's not cheap either. And you have to be able to test things and try things and burn some money on fire so that you can multiply other money in this way. So I want to kind of pivot and understand, like, there's probably a bunch of brand owners, a bunch of founders listening and watching right now, whenever this is live. Um, what does it look like to work with your agency? Are there any thresholds that need to be met, certain revenue numbers? And if so, like what's the best way to get in touch with you and connect?
Sure. So we have a threshold that's at around 500,000 a month or mid seven figures, where it really starts making sense to work with us and engage us as an agency. We are pretty boutique, so we only work with 25 brands at any given moment. The way that we work with brands is we have these 6 people teams, which is basically a full stack CRO team with like all of the different specialists that you need. And we basically provide this team to any of the brands you work with, and they just function as a CRO team. They take over the website, they analyze data, they build landing pages, they run split tests, they change the offer, upsells, copywriting, basically everything on the page to increase conversions and average order value. For the people to get in touch with me, the best is probably Twitter, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Just send me a DM. I check all of those regularly. And then, yeah, I'm always happy to check out a new potential brand. And I will always give my honest opinion whether or not they're a good fit with us, because otherwise it doesn't make sense to engage us, obviously. So I will always make sure that they fit before making an offer.
Yeah, doing 500,000 a month. Maybe I'm naive to the e-commerce space, but is there a decent amount of brands that are that big that you have the ability to take on 25 clients at a time on a regular basis?
Yes, definitely. I mean, I've seen, bro, like probably every single product that you can imagine. I've seen doing big numbers, whether that's shapewear, underwear, jewelry, wallets, caps, shoes, dog beds, right, resistance bands. I've seen all of those products do 500,000, 1 million, 2 million a month. So it's in the beginning, I was also surprised sometimes, like what type of products would do certain numbers. But now I've seen it all, and I don't even get surprised anymore when somebody's in a call and tell me, "Hey, I have this crazy new product and it's doing 2 million a month." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I guess it works."
That's crazy. Something that's coming to mind here that's just curious for me. Uh, Obviously, the writing on the wall is that there's a potential ban of TikTok coming soon. It looked like it wasn't going to happen. Now I think on Polymarket it's like a 75% chance that it gets banned. Um, Obviously, TikTok Shop was a huge growth engine for a lot of these major companies. Does TikTok Shop shutting down actually play into your hand on like now brands are going to have to go back to a service like yours or leverage a team and expertise like yours because they're going to have to go back to growing just traditionally online through a website?
So for the type of brands that we work with, TikTok Shop wasn't really a big thing. So I obviously know that a lot of people are making a bunch of money on TikTok Shop, but for like our types of direct consumer brands, they either sell like most of their products through their website, or they would potentially have something like Amazon or like offline retail, right? So those are pretty the biggest distribution channels for them. So TikTok Shop shutting down is not that big of an issue. The bigger issue rather is that historically the amount you pay for CPM or for per click just continues to rise on Facebook, on Google, on like all of these advertising platforms, because more and more, as you said earlier, more and more e-commerce founders enter into the market, more and more competition enters the market that all bid on the same audience to get their impressions. So that's, I would say, is the bigger issue, that it just becomes more and more expensive to reach people. And then also on the other hand, people and consumers get more sophisticated and smarter, right? They are bombarded with thousands of ads everywhere, on their phone, on their computer, television, radio, offline, right? Like they see ads all day long, so they become super smart and sophisticated. So on the one hand side, you're paying more. On the second hand, on the other side, consumers are just like more numb, I would say, to advertising. So those that's like the biggest challenges that I see going into 2025.
Obviously, those are two different challenges, but both have seemingly become harder and harder over time. Um, what does that make you, or what does that look like for you in that space over the next 5 years, at the trajectory that it's going now? Like, does that concern you in any bit? Do you think there's going to be kind of this reshift or cleanup? Because obviously the CPM numbers have just consistently gone up. It's getting harder and harder to get people to click on things because, like, me personally, I feel like I get served a million ads on Instagram alone every day. Um, and before, I used to find myself clicking on more. Now I find myself clicking on less just because it's just you're fatigued. You see so many. So I'm curious what that looks like for you over the next 5 years.
Um, Interesting question. So the way that I approach it, or the way that I view it, yes, it's going to just get out a bunch of people out of business, right? Because they're not putting in the effort needed, or they've just been stuck, right? It's this typical analogy or metaphor of like the SME business owner, right? Like small medium enterprise business owner that's running a brick and mortar business, and they have never heard of the internet or how to run Google Ads campaigns to get leads for their brick and mortar business, where they do like a nail salon or a fitness studio or whatever, right? And the analogy to that is an online business owner, but they just run the same shit that has been working for the past 5 years, and they don't adapt. So my hypothesis is that you continuously need to adapt and test and iterate and fine tune to stay ahead of the game and not be left behind. So that's like the way that I view it. And if we talk about advertising specifically, it's a bit to what I said in the beginning, where you have to resonate with people and you have to cut through the chase. So you have to become really, really smart and really like research driven in terms of having the best consumer understanding. Like if you understand your consumer and target audience better than your competition, you have a crazy competitive edge, because you're going to find unique ways to reach them and unique ways to resonate with them. And if like you said, you're numb for ads, but if I am going to play out an ad to you and that resonates with you, you're still going to click, right? If I don't know, if I run an ad that's saying like, hey, this is specifically for podcast hosts in this area that are 26 years old, you'll be like, hey, this is perfectly for me, right? And then I talk about the pain points, then it's going to resonate. So that's how I think about advertising and also the website optimization, whereas you just have to be better than your competition at understanding data, understanding your consumers, and then being able to resonate better with them to be able to win this more and more competitive landscape of advertising in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I would be a bad host if I didn't ask. Obviously, AI is something that's just becoming more and more present in every aspect of business. I definitely see AI getting its fingers in the advertising space, whether it's Meta adding a bunch of AI to optimize the platform, same thing for Google. I think it'll be tough for smaller companies because they might get phased out by a few different features that they did. But a company like yours that's kind of at the top of the funnel working with some of the biggest brands, like, are you excited about AI features rolling out on these platforms, the ability to have AI help you grow your business, or is it something that's just kind of a neutral point?
I mean, for me personally, AI is super, super interesting, right? And I have a lot of use cases for it. So for me, it's almost like a personal assistant of some form. And in the business, we have started building AI agents and different AI tools to help us work more efficiently. What I always like to say is that I never like to give the control of the bigger picture strategy or idea making to AI, but I will always have AI kind of work or help the workflow be more efficient. So I would never be going to ChatGPT and say, create an ad campaign for AG1 or give me a headline or something like that, right? I would never do that. I would always think about something myself in terms of strategy or idea. So I'm always independent from AI. So I can always rely on my own skill set. But then, for example, I will have an idea and then I will go into ChatGPT and then just say, hey, this is my idea. This is what I have in mind. Please write a first concept. And then, boom, 5 seconds later, I have a one pager with the whole concept. Then I can go to my team, or I can say, this is my idea for a campaign. Write a one pager concept, action items, deadlines, yada, yada, yada. Quick voice note, 1 minute. I send it into Slack to my team. They work with it. That's 100 times quicker than me going onto Slack, typing everything, structuring it, and whatever. So I personally like ChatGPT a lot. Again, I think a lot of people, they just rely on it too much. So they don't build their skill set. They don't build their own critical thinking process or like ideation phase or something. And I think that's really, really bad and also really dangerous if you rely on AI too much, because then in 10 years, like you're not going to have a skill set. Like and for example, if you're on a call with a client or if you're on a call with anyone, you're not going to have ChatGPT open all the time, right? Like they will ask you, like if you're going to ask me, hey Carl, I have this product, this is my brand, this is my target audience, what can we do? Then I will give you a couple of ideas, right? But it's like I wouldn't be available for you if you could do the same thing with ChatGPT and ask them the same question and get the same answer, because I'm using ChatGPT, right? So that's the way that I like to kind of work with AI.
Yeah, I love it. And I think you're spot on. Like a lot of the younger entrepreneurs that I've met with are, and I don't blame them. Like the tool's really awesome. And I think back at like 20-year-old me when I'm running these Discord communities. Like if I had all these AI tools, I would be trying to do as little as possible and play with all these tools and have them help me. But it's true, like you're not building skill sets, and the writing's on the wall. AI is just going to get better and better and better and replace some of the meaningless, easy tasks. The people with skill sets and the ability to have skills that AI can't replicate, because at the end of the day, it's never going to replicate the thought of thinking like a human and making decisions that humans would typically make. Um, you're going to be way behind the eight ball if you don't actually have some of these skills, and you're going to be potentially at risk. So if there's one message about AI to leave with the people that are younger listening or getting into business, like don't fall into the trap of letting AI run your business for you. Use AI, leverage it, and get the most out of it, but don't give it too much control, because you're just hurting yourself in the long run. Uh, One question that I always like to ask at the end of episodes, it's one of those cliche, simple questions, but it in my opinion helps give advice to the younger people listening and the want to be future entrepreneurs. You're 26, so there hasn't been that much time in between this, but you've had a great career up to this point. And for me, it's, if you could go back and talk to the 18-year-old Carl, what piece of advice would you give yourself?
Great question. The two pieces or the one piece of advice I always like to say is like everything you can put your mind to, you can achieve. If I would only have one, that would be it. Like everything you can imagine, you can achieve. The second thing would be invest every single dollar you make into yourself. Like learn, educate, buy courses, buy mentorships, buy programs, buy books. Like every single dollar you make, invest. And I still live by those two principles to this day. Like I always believe in myself, and I always pay absurd amounts of money for consultants and coaches and books and seminars to educate myself further.
That's awesome. And I always am excited when entrepreneurs are willing to mention that, because the younger person and even this whole like online world kind of gives a hard time to courses and paying money for people. And obviously you got to do your research. Like there are definitely shitty courses, shitty mentors. But I have not come across a single successful entrepreneur, and I've interviewed now over 105 CEOs and founders. I have not come across a single one of them that hasn't given some type of praise, some type of recognition to mentors, to courses, to books. So if you're listening here and you're wondering what you need to do to kind of start this journey, start learning, start being curious, start trying to become a better version of yourself. And in that, you will start to find ideas and find your path to be successful.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah. I want to make sure anybody here, and obviously we kind of alluded to it when it came to the working together, but for the lazy people, where can they find you? What is your most like active platform? I know you said Instagram, LinkedIn, X. What's your ad on those? And we'll make sure they're all linked in the description below as well.
Yeah, it's all the same. It's all Carl Weische. So my first name and my last name, it's pretty much the same on everything. I would say I'm active on all platforms. I probably respond the most on LinkedIn to messages, and I probably put the best content out on YouTube just because it's like long form videos of me like breaking down pages, breaking down campaigns and everything. So that's probably the most valuable if people want to dive deeper into those topics.
Okay, awesome. Man, Carl, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you so much for being an open book and sharing with our audience and community. I learned a bunch, and it was a very interesting conversation from my side. I hope it was great for you as well. And as you continue to scale, grow, I try and get on a cadence where I interview my guests at least once a year, maybe even once every 2 years, because it's very cool now to be able to, one, be able to be a part of your story, see where you were at this point, and be able to come back to it down the road in the interview. But I do want to say thank you so much for coming on and being an open book.
For sure, appreciate it. You've been a great host.
Awesome. And thank you everybody that's listened and watched. We will see you all on the next episode, and have a great rest of your week.